I would love it. And we still have a couple minutes before we're going to begin, but I just wanted to get started by saying hello and checking in with everyone before it gets a little hectic in here. And see, we got Nicole, Wendy, Anna, so many familiar names, some new names. I love seeing the photos and I love seeing your beautiful faces. Melinda, hello. Melinda, and you were at the book launch. I'm trying to remember if anyone else who's on here was there. And we have a fun photo, Melinda, from the book launch freaking 16 years ago. Do you remember that? So fun. I was. Oh my gosh. Trezia, am I saying it correctly? Oh, that's so wonderful. I love knowing that. Hello, Miss Beatrice. Amy.
Hi.
Have been there. My gosh, it's so fun to see so many familiar names and faces, and yeah, to know that some of you were there 16 years ago. You guys, my goodness, how's that possible? Right, that much has happened. Hello, Miss Lynn Barber. It's fun to see names too that like go back to the mid, what do we call them, the aughts, like, you know, kind of 2005-ish, that we've been circulating together in the world for that long. It's totally an honor, an absolute honor. All right, so we'll let people continue to trickle in. Hello, Carol from Montreal. And what I would love, and I'm just going to go through, and let me just switch the view real quick for the recording. And I'm going to go through and give a few announcements and, you know, some updates and just kind of what to expect tonight. And in turn, I would love it if you would head on over into the chat box and let me know where are you tuning in from tonight, and then also your favorite section or chapter from Hip Tranquil Chick. And if you're like, what were the sections? It was on the mat and off the mat. But I'm curious, kind of with where you are right now in your life, is there one that just feels a bit more juicy? Now, some of you may be like, what is Hip Tranquil Chick? And no worries, if you are new to it, I will be talking about it. So a big welcome to new people, and then also those who have been around since finding me. I know Julie and Lexi, a few of you who found the book on the bookshelf because the spine is so fabulous, being pink and leopard print, that is how you found me. And I love it because we've been connected for so long now. So it really is an honor. So again, if you'll just head on over into the chat box, name, where are you tuning in from? And do you have a favorite chapter or section on the mat, off the mat? And then, you know, the other piece I just want to mention is to please grab a journal. We're going to do just a tiny bit of writing and reflection because, you know, that's what we do. And then also your workbook. And if you are like, what workbook? No worries. Check out kimberlywilson.com/sweet16. And I put it there for you. I put all sorts of things over there to make it super easy because I know things can get lost in email. And you know what I'm finding working with younger clients is that some people don't even check email anymore. There's like they say it's too much spam. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, we have to get used to adjusting to different generations that work differently with things. So I'm like, okay, how can I start like texting you? You know, it's like, how do I make sure you get what you need? And you know what, if you don't have access to it or you cannot locate it, don't worry. It's not like a necessity, but I would love for you to have it because my designer and I spent a lot of time pulling it together for you. Also something to write with, you know, something fun. Of course, I've got I have an entire mug full of pink pens here. So whatever it is for you to be able to take down notes, I'm a note taker. And then something fun and bubbly. I have LaCroix for tonight in a very fancy glass from a thrift store. So whatever you might have, because at the end, we're going to do a toast. All right. So again, thank you for being here. A few announcements. If you would take any photos, maybe from your setup or of your book, you know, whatever you would like, and then just share them I'm on Instagram. I'm not on Facebook anymore, but hashtag Tranquility du jour. I always love seeing them and then sharing them, what people come up with. And it's just fun to see what's your setup like. And I did also get a cupcake. It's a gluten-free vegan carrot cake cupcake. So for celebration, I wish you were here to share it. So I'm sharing it in spirit. But, you know, just having whatever it is that makes you feel like, I don't know, celebratory, right? And that's why I created that playlist for you. I hope you all had a chance to listen to it. It's pretty fun. I had a lot of fun kind of pulling it together. The other thing I want to mention is I'm going to be talking about an event that I came up with to do for the day after Thanksgiving called Pink Friday, and a special bonus just for my Hip Tranquil Chickers here tonight. And then also a Sweet 16 discount code to Tranquility du Jour, TDJ, my locally sewn eco-friendly clothing line. And that code is Sweet 16, all caps. And anyone who spends over 100 will get a free leopard print scarf with their order. Okay, and that coupon is valid through the 16th. So just a heads up on that. I'll remind you at the end, but just want to share a few things. If you have questions or comments, please feel free to share them throughout in the chat box, and I'll try to peek in from time to time and be circling back to you. And also a reminder to please stay muted. Everybody I think knows that at this point, but how many of you still start calls and they're like, you're muted? Because I have mine set up to automatically mute and the video's off, so I have to remember to do both. And anyway, so if you have a moment where you unmute, just if you would remute, I would appreciate it. Helps ensure tranquility for everyone. And technology, God bless, if it freezes, then please just feel free to refresh and we will be right here waiting for you. If my internet goes down, same thing, just hold tight and we'll be right back once I kind of get it rerouted. I will send a replay to this, so if you have to miss part of it, or you like fade out for a little bit and you're like, oh, I missed, what was this? Then just know that I will send a replay. And of course you can ask me any questions too. So look for that coming on your private page, which is kimberlywilson.com/sweet16, but I'll also send it out via email, hopefully tomorrow, if my tech support, Tim, makes it happen. And yeah, that's it for announcements. What are we going to be doing tonight? We're going to get centered, of course, because that's what we do. That and reflection, always part of Tranquil du Jour events. We're going to do a little review of Hip Tranquil Chick. And you guys, this is my book from many, many years ago. And it's dog-eared. It has a lot of tabs in it, which you can see, and a lot of underlining. And not because I'm like, oh, let me highlight my amazing words. I would use these things for workshops, right? So highlighting various pieces. Anyway, so I brought that so that I could have something very authentic along with you. And then we'll do a little toast at the end and some bubbly. I also wanted to mention that I will do a little Q&A at the end. So if there is anything that you have a question about, then feel free to put it in the chat box at that time. I'll remind you. And thank you to those of you who sent questions, because I do have some fun responses for you. All right. So let me head on over into the chat box and I'll just do a quick peek because I want to make sure that we get into the heart of the material, but I also just want to see your beautiful names and faces. Okay, so we've got Sally in Georgia, Miss Lovely Leslie, who went on a Hip Tranquil Chick retreat in New York in like 2007. Cindy from Seattle, Nicole, happy book, baby birthday. Thank you, Nicole, so much. Amy, happy Sweet 16. Joyce from Sydney, Australia. It's 11:30 in the morning. Joyce, thank you for being here. Tanya from Nova, right across the river. So excited. Again, Trezia, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, and I love that you were there. Stephanie, thank you. Lynn, I was there. Oh my gosh, you were there. So we have at least a handful, maybe 2 handfuls of people who were at the book launch party. Beatrice, Carol, Paula, Angela. Oh my gosh, you guys, so many wonderful names and faces. I know it does feel like it was 2 years ago. Isn't it crazy? It was, yeah, I mean, HTC 10, right, was 2016. So we had an event for that at my home. So you may remember that. And then for for the 13 year when Hip Tranquil Chick became a teenager. And then, this summer, I was in Paris doing a writing retreat and I was like, oh my gosh, I think she's 16 in November. So that's when I was like, okay, we have to do a Sweet 16. We just kind of have to. And then I had to Google, what do you do at a 16th birthday, a Sweet 16? I don't think I've ever been to one. Okay, Kathleen, Jennifer, Tanya, so many beautiful, wonderful names, faces. Hello, Patricia from our nation's capital. The entire book. I love that, Leslie. Thank you. She liked the entire book. Charity, chapter 3 and 11. You're very specific. I like that. From Tennessee, Inner Chic. Let's see. Inner Chic was your favorite. Awesome, you guys. Savvy sources, social. I'm drinking Gatorade in a champagne glass, honey. Perfect. Perfect. Right. That's why I was like, I had to just let you know it is not champagne. It's not that, that's not that exciting. Um, Nicole, Kat, Hillary, you guys. Oh my gosh, so many amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Lovely Julie. Okay, you guys, I could just keep going. I could spend all my time here in the chat box saying hello and thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. Kathleen, I had a Paris pastry earlier in the day to celebrate you. Thank you. Oh my goodness. Yay for Paris pastries. I know, I kind of wish I had a Paris pastry rather than this. This is gorgeous. It just has some icing on the wrapper, but never fear, I will lick that off. I have no shame. All right, so thank you guys for being here, and thank you to those of you watching the replay. So let's dive in. So you've got your workbook, and what I want to talk about for a moment is just hip, Tranquil Chick defined. Then we're going to get centered, going to read a little poem, and then we're going to do some reflection. All right, so who is Hip Tranquil Chick? What is Hip Tranquil Chick? I used to have a sweet teacher who would come into the studio and she'd be like, hey, Hip Tranquil Chick. And I was like, it's not me. I am not Hip Tranquil Chick. Hip Tranquil Chick is the idealized version, right, of somebody who takes their yoga off the mat. And I had to keep emphasizing that because I'm like, I am not perfect. And, I kind of wrote this book about this like idealized being. So I just want to emphasize that, it's like, some of these pieces may resonate with you, some of them may not, but it's not like, oh, be like me, right? It's more of like, how can we aspire? Like, what would it be like to have this? And if you're like, well, what is this? I'm going to read to you. Okay, so let's see, it's on page 2 of the book, and do not worry if you do not have the book handy, but I'm just going to read you a little piece, and I do need my glasses for this. Okay, so sometimes people are like, where did you come up with Hip Tranquil Chick? So in 2006, Hip Chick was a big thing. You saw that in a lot of books, right? And so hip, I think of it as your external presentation, right? It's fun, fashion, frivolity. Do people still use that word anymore? Okay, and then tranquil, so that's your inner substance, right? The savvy behind the style. That's what I would think of as tranquil as I defined this in those days. Chick, I don't know that you really hear that word much anymore, but chick is your energy, your joie de vivre. And those of you who speak French, my sincere apologies. I try to speak your beautiful language and not very successfully. Okay, so then I have here, and again, think idealized, right? So this was the woman that at that point in my life I aspired to be, and definitely there are still pieces from here. The Hip Tranquil Chick is a swanky girl on the go, looking for some tranquility along the way. She juggles a busy life with grace, lives her practice, makes time for thoughtful gestures, gives of her resources, lights up a room with her presence. She embodies a passion for life. She lives in a mindful, conscientious manner that helps spread true tranquility. Again, she's the girl we aspire to be. All right, so that was my vision and version of Hip Tranquil Chick. Now, if you turn to page 7 in the book, there's the manifesto. And again, I just want to read this briefly because it's fun to revisit this and think about, okay, what was my idealized thing at this time, 16 years ago, and really 17, because I wrote the book in 2005. Live fully, seek serenity, laugh often, tread mindfully, savor simplicity, love passionately, think globally, exude creativity, and treasure tranquility. As a Hip Tranquil Chick, I, name, promise to. All right, again, think idealized. And I'm curious, as I'm reading this, again, this is on page 7 of the book, for those of you who have it handy, think about or circle or write down the ones that resonate with you. We're not trying to do all these things or be all these things at this moment, right? This is ideally, like in general. Create a vision for my life. Nourish my inner artist through constant creativity. Okay, I had and still have a thing for alliterations. I think I overdid it a little in Hip Tranquil Chick, but constant creativity, I like to think about how can we be creative in everyday life, even Lexi sipping Gatorade from a fancy glass and sipping pamplemousse grapefruit grapefruit is pamplemousse, but pamplemousse sparkling water from a fancy glass. That is a version of creativity. Breathe through challenges, consciously carve my career path, host savvy soirees to expand my community, mindfully manage my money, design an oasis to nurture my soul at home and work, which, by the way, this is my office, you guys. So this is my office setting that you are seeing, because I just finished seeing clients, and so I couldn't get home in time. And so that's why you are here with me in my office setting, which, oh, and here's the chandelier, because of course we always have to have a chandelier, right? So if you think about your setting, right, and particularly because so many of us are working from home also, how does it fill you up? Or does it, right? Indulge in socially conscious actions, exude my signature style with a dash of flair, challenge myself daily. And let's be honest, we have been so challenged since we last met for the 13th year birthday party, right? So, oh my goodness, what we have been through. I mean, just showing up every day, frankly, is a challenge, right? Seek opportunity and express gratitude. The perfect month to be expressing gratitude with Thanksgiving, those of you stateside. Serve as an inspiration to others. Nurture my relationships daily. Surround myself with candles, flowers, and positive pals. You see the overuse of alliteration. I love them. I overdid them. Nourish my body with oodles of water, fresh fruit, and whole grains. Schedule herbal tea sipping, bathtub soaking, and journal writing. Find inspiration in the mundane and practice yoga gracefully on and off the mats. So that was the manifesto that I created at that time. And now, I think the thing, right, whenever I have here, that tranquility is your inner world, the savvy substance behind the style. Well, now, I define it as the quality of calm within a full and meaningful life. Yeah, the savvy behind, or the, substance behind the style, but really it's about living a meaningful life. So, right. So it's a life that makes a difference to you and to others and all beings, right? That's what I think about now whenever I think about tranquility. And I also think about it not being like this idealized person living this perfect life. It's like, how do we have tranquility when, the world's on fire, right? When there's just so much going on, that's when we need it the most. All right, so let's just take a moment to get centered now that we have defined Tranquil Chick and tranquility, and just come to a comfortable seat. And I'm just going to walk you through a brief centering and then read you a beautiful poem. All right, so feet on the ground, if that's comfortable for you. Those of you may be sitting on the floor, cross-legged, whatever feels great. And then hands facing down on your lap. And then if you're comfortable, closing the eyes. And let's take a few deep breaths together, inhaling through the nose. Exhaling through the mouth. Again, inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. And then continue breathing normally in and out of your nose. And just take a moment to drop into your body. What do you notice? Do you feel the air on your skin, clothing on your skin? Is there heat or coolness, tightness, openness? And again, no judgment, just noticing, what am I observing in my body right now? And then tap into your emotional body. What emotion would you say you are noticing right now? And again, there's no right or wrong, but if you could name it, what would it be? Bring one hand to your heart center and just rest it here for a moment. This helps to calm the autonomic nervous system. And it also is a beautiful gesture of compassion, self-compassion. Just honoring yourself for showing up tonight and taking the time out of your busy life to be here with me, with each other, and with yourself. And take a big inhale through your nose. Exhale through your mouth. Let the eyes flutter open. Beautiful. So welcome back, everyone. And what I would love to do is read to you a poem that you have heard over the years, quite a bit, because I love it. It's one of my favorites, by Marianne Williamson. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God, and your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. And it's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. As we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. And as we're liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Right? So as you think about it, as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. And I really do think that that was like the underlying mission of this book, right? Like to think about, how can you let your special sauce, right, your own unique spark, however you want to show up on the yoga mat, in your everyday life, in your, relationships, in your office, in your career, like how can you do it in a way that really is letting your light shine? What does that even look like now? And how is that different than how it might have been or felt 16 years ago? If you'll turn to page 3 in your workbook, okay, so this is the reflection page where I gave you some questions just to think about. And if you didn't have a chance to get to them, no worries. I'm just going to kind of walk you through them. And I want you to think about this if you can. Again, some of you may not be as familiar with this book, so that's all right. But those of you who are and who have been around and done workshops and retreats on this, then I would love for you to really just like, even if you can't have a chance to jot them down, to think about your answers to this. So number 1 is, what most resonates with me about Hip Tranquil Chick, right? So for a lot of you, you mentioned, again, finding this in the bookstore. And it's funny, I really did emphasize, I wanted the leopard print on the spine. And so I love that that really appealed to some of you. But what is it? Like, what drew you to it? This is my little baby pug, Louie. Rest in peace, sweet Louie. And I really did used to have a home that was painted this pink, not just an accent wall. All the walls were painted this color. Then I went to just an accent wall, and now it's more of a blush pink. It's more like something like this. Anyway, okay, number 2. Which of the 12 topics do I most need right now? Okay, and those are the 12 chapters, right? From your yoga practice pieces to your values, to self-care, creativity, relationships, finances, the environment, the world, style, things along those lines, right? So which of these do you most need like right now? What would be kind of juicy to revisit? What own work would you like to revisit and incorporate? And just a reminder that there was own work at the end of every chapter. And that was just like, again, it was my little spin on homework. Thought I was so clever, right? So there's own work. And there were a few things after each chapter that were ideas on how to incorporate or bring this topic to life. Now, does the manifesto still resonate with me, right? So I gave you the manifesto. I read it, which is on page 7. But does that still resonate with you? And if not, what changes would you make to it? What kind of pops out to you as something that would just feel a bit more important or more of the now? Because I tell you, there's definitely some pieces missing from this book that I'll mention in a moment. And then last is, how has this book changed for you as you have gotten older, right? So many of us are in what we would call midlife, right? Which is very different than when we were in our 20s or 30s. And so how has this book changed for you? Have you revisited it? Or you're like, oh, I haven't seen this book in 16 years. I just pulled it off my shelf. That's totally fine too. But I'm just curious as you go through it. And, we have to think of at the time when this book came out, again, Sex and the City, super big. Chick Lit, I never read it, but I know it was very popular. So I didn't really read fiction, but it was very big then, right? Daily Candy was very big. And that was, some of you are like, what's Daily Candy? And it was like the Bible back then, right? In the early days, like of online activity. And yet, so that kind of language and vibe is really infiltrated through here. When I say here, I mean the book, which, not necessarily resonates for everyone as much anymore. So just some things that I've noticed and observed and curious for you. Now, if you turn to page 4 in your workbook, I have a list of highlights, some things that I've just gone through and, really, I think, like, tried to pull out the page numbers of pieces that might be particularly useful or helpful, from looking at different things on the mat to off the mat, and then pieces from many of the chapters. So that to me is just like, okay, here's some highlights and timeless inspiration, I hope, that, no matter how old we are, I hope that we can refer back to and get a little bit of love, a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of encouragement. And page 5, if you will turn to page 5, this is Hip Tranquil Chick Grows Up. Okay, right? So I just want to share a little bit about, to give you a visual of 16 years ago, 2006, like where things were, particularly in my life, with the writing of this book and, the evolution, right? Because then I'll give a little snapshot of where things are now, right? It's so interesting. And if you can think back for yourself, where were you in 2006? Where'd you live? Where'd you work? Who were you with? What were you passionate about? How'd you spend your free time? And how have you evolved from there? So a little snapshot for me. I was 33 years old. Tranquil Space Yoga Studio was my life and my baby. At that point, Tranquil Space was 7 years old. I was in love with a nonprofit attorney who I still happen to be with, named Tim. I was a pet parent to 2 kitties and 1 pug, sweet baby Louie, who will forever be memorialized. I dreamt of taking the newly formed nonprofit, Tranquil Space Foundation Global. You may remember this Miss Leslie. She worked for Girl Scouts at the time. And I'm like, I want Tranquil Teens to be the new Girl Scouts. Yeah, okay. I was a little overly ambitious. Again, Leslie, you may remember that. I'd launched a podcast, which is very avant-garde then, right? I had to describe to people what a podcast was. I'm like, well, it's like this radio show that you record, people listen to. And now, of course, everybody has a podcast. So it's really kind of fun to see the evolution of that. Started a blog, 2004. I had started a blog, right? So at that point, it's 2 years into the blog, 1 year into the podcast. And had a clothing line that I had just started really doing my own designs. And these are pieces from that line, right? Some of you may remember this tie top, Melinda in particular for the belly dance studio. And then this was like the little chemise, which we still have something very similar. And then the capri leggings. This was the capri flare, which we don't have anymore. But so that was kind of where I was. Hip Tranquil Chick was kind of like my coming out as an author. I'd been blogging, right, for 2 years, but not the same as publishing a book. Coming out as a lover of pink and all things leopard print, obviously, and a proponent of kitten heels. And I will say there is a review, and I can't remember if it's on Amazon or Goodreads, but of this book. And she's basically like, if I were to take a shot yet every time she said kitten heels, like I would be intoxicated. I'm so paraphrasing, but it was like one of those things where I think it was Goodreads. I was so horrified that I could not join Goodreads for like 10 years. Crazy. It's so funny what people say. I don't even remember writing about kitten heels very much, but I remember that review and I'm like, I must have mentioned kitten heels a lot. Now, of course, I'm more into like Swedish clogs. So, you know, again, different. My vision was to spread the message that yoga wasn't just poses on a sticky mat, right? That it was more about a lifestyle and how to incorporate that in a way too that wasn't super crunchy or granola-y, which sometimes yoga can be viewed as. All right, so that's 2006. Since then, we've transitioned my I want to go global with Tranquil Space Foundation, Tranquil Teens, to we have free curriculum on the website, pigsandpugs.org, where you can download the curriculum that we did, that we piloted, an 8-week program, and you can use it and share it in any way you would like. It's really great. Yoga, yoga, creativity, and leadership for teen girls. I soon realized teen girls were not my forte. I preferred Pigs and Pugs. So that's how Pigs and Pugs Project came about. And you're probably familiar with that. We give microgrants to pug rescues and pig sanctuaries and do events, although they've been put on hiatus. Thank you, COVID. But they will be back next year. I sold the yoga studio after 18 years to Yoga Works. I got a new hip, brand new hip right here. Lots of loss. So much loss in these past 16 years, right? From the yoga studio, even though that was a choice, it's a loss. It's a loss of like, you know, my life's work of 18 years. Lost Louis the pug, heartbreaking. Belle Star the pug, heartbreaking. Bonard the black cat, heartbreaking. And my grandma, my 99-and-a-half-year-old grandma, who is still too young to go. Lots of loss, right? So that's why I offer those pet loss support groups for free. I'm really big on like support through the grieving process. It's so, so critical. And I know actually many of you here are dealing with loss right now, or of course have dealt with loss in some capacity, and you know how just heartbreaking it is. And so what's interesting about loss too, as we get older, there's something called cumulative loss. So every loss builds on the next, and it's intense. So the grieving process, I mean, I don't touch on grief at all in this book. Now I would have probably a whole chapter dedicated to grief. I've written 5 more books with your help. Many of you have been beta readers for my books that followed. Thank you, thank you, thank you for fixing my grammar, for giving me suggestions, maybe less alliterations, whatever you did. It was amazing, and I'm so grateful. I launched my private psychotherapy practice, voila, adopted more pugs, returned to ballet, which was a childhood passion of mine. And so that's been really fun and quite challenging. And then I created the coterie, the Tranquility Coterie, which I'll be talking more about and announcing in December. And so that's kind of been my evolution over these past 16 years. It's been a lot, right? And think about for you too, what has been your trajectory? How does it feel? Are there certain changes that you are really proud of? Are there certain things that have really stuck with you over these past 16 years? So page 6, Tranquility Now. Okay, so as we think about now, I'm going to talk a little bit about what's missing from Hip Tranquil Chick, and also what are the lessons that are being learned in particular at this time in my life? And a lot of you are kind of in the life stage that I am. So midlife is no joke. You know, I was recently with someone and she's probably in her mid 60s, but every time we would stand up or we'd sit down, we're like, oh my gosh, like what is happening? I know some of you can relate. Some of you are probably like, oh my gosh, that's so sad. But it is funny, you know, and particularly before I got my hip replaced, every time I stood up or sat down, like it was just so, right, painful. And now it's just all the adjusting. And, you know, after you sit for a while, your body gets a little achy. But I'm like, I don't want to be that person who moans all the time they get up and down. But I will say midlife is no joke. Those of you dealing with it, you get it. making space to let go, right? So goodbyes are powerful and they're also really, really hard. Okay. So one thing that I've learned over these past 16 years is, we're not always going to be who we were, and that's okay. For example, I read a book earlier this year. Personality isn't permanent. I was like, is the name going to come to me? That's another thing that happens in midlife. But personality isn't permanent. Anyway, the book was really great. And there was a quote in there, not from the author, but he was quoting someone else that said, if you're not embarrassed by who you were a year ago, you're not growing, right? And it was like, I may be paraphrasing, but I think that was that I know that was the gist, right? And I thought, wow, like, to think that if I'm not embarrassed by who I was a year ago, I thought that was harsh, right? But it's also something to think about. Are you evolving from who you were? And hopefully we are in some capacity, right? And it's also hard to let go of those parts of ourselves. Paris is always a good idea. Okay. Like we already knew that. That is something I continue to learn. Less is more, except when it comes to books. So as you see, there are some books behind me. This is just my therapy and kind of like, my therapy type books. And they're all done by color. You guys, that takes forever. And B, it's hard to find things. So I've not done that at home. I have my home by category, but I don't know that less is more with books. Although, I know we can get from the library. I encourage things along those lines, but I don't know what it is. I do have a problem. I still have a problem there. Compassion's the new black, like my little t-shirt says. And I really feel that way so much with regard to animals, to, people suffering, particularly to people dealing with loss, right? Compassion, compassion, compassion. I was even working with someone today and we were talking about, being challenged by certain people that trigger us, right? You guys probably don't have this, but other people do. Some of us do. And, I was talking to her about, well, what would it be like to, okay, you notice what it is about this person that's challenging you, but what would it feel like to actually have compassion for that person, right? Like the humanity of this person, the things this person must be dealing with, and it was just like, oh, as a total kind of spin on a challenge that we all have. Deep appreciation of beauty. This is so big for me. I cry at concerts, okay? Like I'm moved by music. I know some of you feel that, right? You go to a symphony, live jazz. I go see my Garth Brooks. I've recently fallen in love with Harry Styles, right? So all these sorts of things, it's like it's like beauty of it is so palpable. I cry at farm sanctuaries because I love pigs and I kind of can't get enough of them. They like belly rubs. And I cry like at ballet, right? Like at the arts, not like in ballet class, but sometimes I do, but that's different. But it's like crying, just you're so appreciative of the beauty that's out there. And I do feel like as we get older, we begin to appreciate more and more of these simple things. The last thing I want to mention from a lessons learned perspective is the management of energy. So and I'll bet a lot of you are highly sensitive people, right? And if you're not sure, just go online, highly sensitive person test. It's free. And I'll bet you are. Let me know. But highly sensitive people, we're highly sensitive. And there's many different things from like itchy clothes are really problematic, bright lights, loud sounds, crowds. There's so many things, right? And also I'm an INFJ, which is my Myers-Briggs. Again, personality isn't permanent, so I'm not going to hone in on these, but these are a bit of my makeup. So the more lessons that I learn around that, the more I am recognizing what works for me and what doesn't. And I'm curious for you, right? As you think about what worked for you in 2006 or 2010 or 2015 or 2020, that is like so not you anymore, right? You're just like, I can't go out and stay up past 11, right? Or 9:30, whatever it is, just like noticing the evolution and being okay with that and really paying attention to your own constitution and recognizing it may not be like others. Now, as we think about too, kind of like this idea of what's next, the piece for me, as I think about with Hip Tranquil Chick, like I'm like, Hip Tranquil Chick in midlife, you know. I don't think that the title would necessarily work these days, but you know, it's like thinking about how can we offer support and love and also normalize aging, right? So this piece around aging gracefully. For those in the coterie, we've got a bonus next month with Jamie Cat Callan, who wrote Parisian Charm School, all sorts of really beautiful Parisian Frenchy books. And she's 70, almost 70. And anyway, she's going to be doing a workshop on aging gracefully, which is just so, so lovely, right? So as we think about aging gracefully, what would that look like? And I think about that really as a what's next from this point of this angle, right? This lens of Hip Tranquil Chick. Maybe even some sort of like midlife group I was thinking of maybe offering next year. And, you know, again, Hip Tranquil Chick grows up, but not, you know, necessarily that brand per se, because I don't know if that would resonate with people in this age of this day. Okay, so what's missing? All right. And I would love for you to think about this too and put in the chat box if you have any ideas. What's missing from Hip Tranquil Chick that's much more current, right? So I definitely have a few ideas. So first of all, time and energy management and handling burnout, not really in here. I mean, in this book, I was freaking 33 and I wanted to take Tranquil Space Foundation global, okay? And I also wanted Tranquil Space in cities around the US. I mean, come on, like, no, I mean, it's way too much, right? The energy and the chutzpah that I had then is like so different. So how do we handle burnout? That is not in here, right? This was more go, 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 do, do, do. Minimalism is not in here. And I feel like the minimalist movement, maybe it, you know, kicked off a few years later. I wasn't exposed to it by the time, whenever I wrote this book. But I feel like that's a really important thing now for us to be looking at, like, you know, particularly after the pandemic, right? It's like really tuning in, essentialism, like getting down to what do we really need. Social media, you guys, I don't think Facebook was not around even when this came out. Twitter may have been around. I wasn't using it, right? So Instagram, none of that. So social media wasn't there. So it's not captured here. I'm probably even mentioned Blackberries. Some of you may not even know what that is. And, you know, so what's missing here is digital minimalism. How do we not stay connected 24/7, right? So different. I mean, thank God it wasn't around. I mean, it would have been lovely probably because, you know, I could have done some fun things with it, but, you know, I really miss those days, you know, of life just being so much simpler. Compassion. I feel like compassion is not in here enough. Granted, I've got the global chapter, right? But I think from an animal welfare perspective, from, you know, social change perspective, so many things missing. Mental health, not touched on. It's like assuming everyone is just great, you know, everything's wonderful. So clearly there's not anything on managing a pandemic. I mean, how could we have been prepared for that? But, you know, it's like the resiliency and what came out of the pandemic for so many people, I'm just like so blown away by and impressed with, because it was not easy and many are still suffering massive consequences. Uncertainty and overwhelm. So those are the other kind of mental health pieces that I feel like is missing. And then diversity. Diversity is totally missing. I remember whenever this book came out, this was 2010. I remember like one piece that I really asked for is that I wanted a diverse cover, right? So here there's just one person, right? And, you know, it's based on a photo from my home. Here, though, I'm like, these people in a cafe and they are diverse, right? So that was a really important piece for me. And of course, Louis is in a purse. Of course he is, little monster. And diversity, though, it's missing. And, you know, in DEI, right? All the stuff that's come out of the past 16 years in a beautiful way, but in a way that just was not touched on here. So yes, right? So I'm curious what you all think. Anything that is missed, you know, that you're like, oh, I wish we could talk about this in this day and age, kind of from this lens, right? So if there is anything, please do not hesitate. I will not be offended because this is 16 years ago, right? Charity, Beauty, the Invisible Embrace by John O'Donohue. Thank you, Charity. I love him, and I did not know about this book, and I must check it out. And there is there's an assessment. I think it's called VIA assessment. Again, a free test you can take online. Google VIA assessment test. But it'll tell you what are your kind of biggest values, or the things that like most move you or touch you or motivate you, something along those lines. It's kind of based in positive psychology. Anyway, beauty was my number one. So love this, Charity. I'm so checking it out. Kathleen, yes, I think we're all much more attuned to social justice issues and how we interact with people. Absolutely, how we interact with them, how we view them, how we treat them, the whole thing. Kat, I was going to say the same thing. Love it. Amy, social connectedness and ways to relieve anxiety, depression that seems prevalent now. Totally. And I would fold that under the mental health piece. It's funny, as I was writing this, I did have anxiety, depression, and then I moved that out and just added, managing a pandemic, uncertainty, overwhelm, but stress, huge, right? And then of course, anxiety, depression, abso-freaking-lutely, and handling burnout, which I think is so at the forefront now. Wendy, it sounds like you have the outline of your next book, Kimberly, The Missing Pieces of Tranquil Chick. I love that, Wendy. Thank you. Kat, oh my God, I really want to create a curriculum for myself where I just reread all of these books. Billy, Setting Boundaries. Yes, yes, yes. Paula, great idea. Chai, hello, Chai. Maintaining and Nurturing Adult Friendships. You guys, that is so, so big. And, I think definitely from the pandemic, we began and felt, so isolated, but then other people, right, were setting up all these Zoom happy hours, right? But for a lot of people, there is a feeling of isolation. Even before the pandemic, though, and Chai, I completely agree. I hear from so many people right after college, it's like, how do I make friends? And, there's no there are how-tos out there. You can find them online, but it's just not the same. And everyone's situation is so unique. And I think that's so, so important. It's very hard. And I think particularly, Chai, when we're in different life stages, you'll notice, people who are childless by choice, sometimes it can be hard because if you have friends who have children, it's hard to adjust schedules, right? Or understand each other, or people who have pets and people who don't, or, people who move away and yet were once so connected, but now they're in different cities and life happens. So there's so many intervening factors that weren't necessarily in play when we were in college or grade school or high school and stuck together in a group. Christy, same thing. Charity, same thing. Yes. Oh, Michelle, thank you so much. Via character. I called it via assessment. Thank you so much, Michelle, for finding that. I really appreciate it. You have viacharacter.org. You guys take it? Let me know. I wonder if you're beauty. Decorum is sorely needed. It's missing these days, Miss Lynn. Yes, it's like a little Miss Manners for like the modern girl, right? Could be fun. Noelle, acceptance of our individuality. Yes, yes. Sustainable living, saving our planet. No big deal, right, Michelle? Yes. Smartphones came out 15 years ago. Oh my goodness. Stephanie, is there a hit Tranquil Chick midlife edition? Definitely navigating elder care. Yes, you guys, I forgot caretaking. Caretaking's huge. Okay, so little example, but I have 2 very special needs dogs. Okay, that's minor, I know, compared to like a family member, but you think about it, or a child, Beatrice, right? So it's like, you think about all these different parts of caretaking that you do. And those of you who manage people at work, that's caretaking, right? So yes, Stephanie, that's a beautiful one. And, I will say the thing that I'm working on now and have been working on for a while, I do have draft 2.0 and I'm working on, and I got my book proposal draft done this weekend, but is a memoir, right? And talking about the evolution kind of the yoga studio, my passion, what happens whenever your flame dies out for a passion, how do you transition and move on? So that's what I've been working on. But I will say, I think this is the next book, because there's so much to be said about midlife, and it really is not easy, as you guys know. And there are books out there, but there's not a lot out there. So stay tuned and let me know what your suggestions are. Yeah, Christy Maria, midlife career changes. Yes. You think midlife, not even just career changes, but midlife life changes, right? I think so many people, there's always that, oh, it's the guy who gets the red sports car, right? Midlife crisis. I mean, women, we all have these midlife existential reevaluations. And I think in particular from the pandemic, it's been big. And so Justin, my little baby Justin's here, vitality and thriving at every age. Yes, Justin. Justin was in New York at a meetup that I did. Kat, if you were there too, but a meetup in 2011, just in New York. I happened to be in town. So I was like, let's meet at this like really cool little bar. And Justin came in a pink shirt that said Paris. And by the end of the night, I was sitting on his lap. Like, I loved him so much. So Justin, thank you for being here tonight. Anna, can you please put your books on Audible? I could, and I can for like the last 4, but the first 2, I don't think my publisher would probably like that, but I will ask. But yes, thank you, Anna, for mentioning that, because that is important. And I just need to think about sitting in a recording studio and talking, or into my mic at home. How to bring the chic and savvy into older age. Absolutely, Anna. That's critical, right? You guys, these are such great ideas. I'm so saving this meeting chat to like look back on. So thank you. All right. So the piece that I want to do is we just kind of move into wrap up. And I would love, if you have anything else, please feel free to share in the chat box and share any takeaways and or questions that you might have in the comment section. And I'm just going to do a little wrap up and also answer the couple questions that came through earlier today. And let's see, I have here page 6. So I think that I'm referencing page 6 in your workbook, potentially. I think that's what I meant. So there's a page 6. If you would like to take a peek at that, as you think about any takeaways from tonight that kind of has stuck with you, hopefully inspired in some way or been thought-provoking, because that was my hope for this event. And I'll share a few things and then come back with some questions and read your takeaways. Okay, so the first thing I want to mention is the question that I got, which I thought was so great. One of the questions, and it's from Melinda. Hope it's okay, Melinda, to say this, but I'm sure it's fine because it's nothing private. But she was at the launch party and she asked this great question: what's a favorite memory from those hip Tranquil Chick days? And, I really had to sit with that and think about it, because there were so many fun things from the launch party where everybody got a leopard print scarf, the first 50 people, and we raised a lot of money for the foundation. We had Tranquil Teenies. Okay, so that was a really fun thing. But the thing that came to mind, and I happened to, I have some random things in my book, and I happen to have a menu from Cafe Gratitude. Some of you may know Cafe Gratitude. I don't even know if they're still around on the West Coast, but you would order a smoothie that was like, I am beautiful. They were all affirmations. Anyway, so I'm at Cafe Gratitude. This is 2007. And it's after I'd done a month-long teacher training, Jiva Mukti teacher training in New York. And I'm meeting up in California, just having tea at Cafe Gratitude with a man who was in the training with me, who was so lovely. He's so sweet. He would save my seat at the front every day because I always came in a little late. And he always had like a water bottle for me. He was just the sweetest thing. Anyway, so I'm at Cafe Gratitude having tea with him, some I Am Beautiful or something. And a woman comes up to me who turns out to be Jennifer Lee, who I've had on the podcast a few times. We didn't know each other yet. And she comes up to me and she pulls this book out of her handbag. And she's like, are you Kimberly Wilson? Okay, this is in San Francisco. And I'm like, yes. And then my friend sitting next to me is like all impressed, And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, oh, I'm reading your book. I'm coming to your workshop, because I was teaching a workshop at Yoga Tree in San Francisco there. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Do you want me to sign it? So it's just a sweet moment. I mean, what are the chances? You're in San Francisco, somebody has your book in their bag. So that was like one of my favorite memories from that time, right? Just very like sweet, quaint, no social media. I didn't know her yet. And yet we, have this connection because she has my book in her bag. The other question that came in is, what's next for Hip Tranquil Chick, right? And so So Hip Tranquil Chick, that brand itself, the brand, it's like has moved on. I feel like she's grown up, she's aged, she's, tranquilly du jour. And with that, I do love though everything we've talked about tonight of how to really kind of bring in this piece of all the pieces that are missing, something that's more of the now, and really honed in on midlife. I mean, I was 33, so I was 32 when I wrote this book. I mean, I was like a baby, right? Spouting advice, right? It's just kind of funny. So what's next? I'd say the memoir, and then the coterie for next year, and then also some sort of midlife group I will be pulling together. So stay tuned for that. And again, if you share, questions or takeaways over in the chat box, I'm just going to share a few other announcements. Thank you, by the way, for sending those questions in. The first thing is Pink Friday. So the day after Thanksgiving, you guys, I was like, we need to do something end of year. And, December's just so crazy that I thought day after Thanksgiving, Pink Friday. So it's basically going to be a 90-minute mini retreat. And it's a way to look at the year 2022 and also recognize the year is not over. I mean, we still have like 5 weeks. So those dreams that you started at the beginning of the year, some are still possible. And that maybe you're not going to write a book in December, but you could write your first chapter, right? So we're going to be talking about those dreams. We're going to talk about the year. And we're going to be doing a little looking ahead and a little planning, but it's really going to focus on this year so far and a little wrap up of it, and a really tranquil, fun one and beautiful one. So I'm already working on the workbook. It's a darling because my graphic designer is amazing. But if you sign up by the 16th, which is, when is that? That is Wednesday night by midnight Pacific time, you're going to get a fun little bonus. And the bonus is a recorded guided meditation where I walk you through an end of year meditation, kind of going through each of the parts, each of the pieces, and then also a look ahead. So it'll be really juicy and beautiful, and it'll be coming out this weekend. So that'll help in preparation for Pink Friday. All right. So if you are interested, all the information is on your private page, KimberlyWilson.com/Sweet 16. And then also you'll find out information, in the emails that I send, but would love to have you. I think it's going to be a really wonderful way to spend the day. And don't worry if you already have plans, because I will send a recording. Also, your TDJ discount. So Compassion is the New Black is on there, all sorts of fun things. If you order by, you get 20% off with code SWEET16. And that goes through the November 16th deadline date. And then anyone who spends over 100, you get a free little leopard print scarf. And I'm wearing it like this in honor of Harry Styles. I don't know if you guys have seen like one of his movie premieres. I think for My Policeman, he has, and I think this is like his Gucci like collaboration, but he's got a little tie like this, which I thought was just so fun. But of course you can tie a bow, you can do all sorts of things in your hair, around your wrist, your handbag, etc. So you will get one of these with that. And then last but not least, if you would be willing, I would be so, so grateful to pen a review on Amazon of any of my books, anything that means anything to you, and send me a link to it, and then I'll send you a really cute postcard. So I got these adorable postcards at the Opera House in Paris when I was there last month, and they're so cute, and they've got little sparkles on them. So anyway, I'll send you a little Paris postcard as a thank you. All right. So let me head on over into the chat box, see if there's any final questions or thoughts, and then I will bring us all together. We'll do gallery review, and we'll do a little toast to you, to this community, and to everything that is coming down the pike, right? Okay, so which hopefully is a lot of beautiful, wonderful things for you and for each other. Justin, happy to be here to reflect and celebrate. Well, Justin, it's a treat to have you. Justin, do you still have that Paris t-shirt, by the way, because it was kind of adorable. Anna, how is it possible that you are even more beautiful now? Anna, that is so sweet. You're so kind. It's a curling iron and good mascara, but you're very sweet. Thank you. Lynn, the Netflix series is next. You're adorable. And thank you for all the resources that you send. She's, I haven't seen you, Lynn, well, I guess I saw you whenever we did that meetup in New York in 2018. But before then, it'd probably been like 10 years since I'd seen you. And it's just so fun to stay connected. Lexi, I'm so grateful I found Hip Tranquil Chick in my way to this amazing group, life changing. Well, I'm so grateful and happy, almost birthday. Cindy, thank you. Kimberly, so fun. Jackie, so lovely. Thank you. Agree, Lexi. I've been listening. I did not know that, Paula, that you've been listening since 2005. Really feel like I've absorbed a lot of wisdom from all the interviews and TDJ tenants. That's wonderful. TT, happy Sweet 16. Looking forward to reading your future books, including New, Hip, and Still Practicing Tranquility. I love it. That's funny. That's good. You guys are amazing. Thank you. And if you think of any questions, that you're like, or anything else that you would like to see written about, drop me a note. Just Kimberly at KimberlyWilson.com, or just reply to my emails. I always love hearing from you. So let's head on over. I'm going to turn us into gallery view. And if you would grab your sparkly libation, if you have one. If you don't, a can of something, including Gatorade works, right, Lexi? And or a water bottle. And let's just do a little cheers, and feel free to unmute yourself so that we can kind of say goodbye in person, as in person as this is, right? Yay. Oh my gosh, it's so fun to see faces. Look at you guys. Hey, everybody. Oh my God, it's such a treat. So I'm just scrolling through the gallery view. Okay, so I think it's just showing photos for the first group. So, or not photos, but video. So thank you guys. All right, so cheers. Cheers to you. Cheers to all that's been created over the past 16 years in your life. And cheers to all that lies ahead. I adore you, and I'm so grateful that you're here. Cheers.
Yes, thank you.
Cheers.
Namaste and cheers. Thank you, everybody.
Cheers.
Thank you. Say hi. ¿Te llamó?
Oh.
Le pusiste un corazón.
Oh.
Everybody, thank you for being here. Such a treat to have you.